and then further eastward. According to reports from the UK Defence Journal, many of those airlifters are carrying helicopters operated by the Night Stalkers, the elite special operations unit that flew Delta Force commandos into the heart of Caracas just days ago.
Damn.
Speaking of Delta Force, they've reportedly pivoted to the Middle East as well, with other elite American units in Europe.
Ladies and gents, this is big one. Iran is next. Here's why. By channel Warfronts. Yes, another Warfronts video. This is continuing series of shit is happening in Venezuela, and it's a bigger picture than most people think. First domino has fallen. Who knows where this is gonna go? Because there's multiple things that are happening. They talk about Greenland, and Greenland is getting like talked a lot, which is concerning. When that happens, usually that becomes like interesting, like place of interest, let's just say. So shit might happen with Greenland as well. Who knows, right? This is like justification to like, oh, I want places around America just to belong to America, because like, I don't know, I'm fearing China might get control or something. I don't know what's happening, Monroe Doctrine type of shit. But Iran, like, yeah, Iran might be next. There is a literal protests going on in Iran, conducted by special agencies by USA. Who the fuck knows? This is history in the making. In 20, 30 years from now on, we'll probably learn about details of how all this shit happened. Let's go this one.
Global headlines. Surprise, it's Venezuela. So, if we here at Warfronts are coming to you to discuss anything else, well, you'd best believe that it is really kind of urgent, because we see the views the Venezuela got. So here we are, giving you a video about Iran. You'll want to watch it. Because right now, the nation of Iran is on the brink of collapse. It is facing a crisis worse than the Mahsa Amini riots, worse than the decades-long crush of international sanctions, and even worse than last year's 12-day war against Israel. Cities are slipping out of Tehran's control, the Ayatollah is reportedly preparing to make a quick exit, and it's an open question whether Iran's economy or its water supply is going to collapse first. Israel is back on the path toward all-out war, and just days after Washington's actions in Venezuela, it appears that Uncle Sam already has his sights set on a new target. From reading, this is a crazy year. From reading the news this morning, I'm like, well, it's Greenland, right? Oh, we're going to be busy. 47 years after the Islamic Revolution, it appears that Iran may not last a month. So, here's everything you need to know about Iran's current crisis and what it can tell us about a coming storm that could arrive in mere days. Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, can Delta Force extract Ayatollah? Yeah, that's his name. Him from Tehran? Because with Maduro, it was like near the water. That's where the capital city was, Venezuela, which is just there. Can US do this with Iran without, alarming? Like, oh, by the way, America's coming. Because he would just run down in one of those bunkers. Then it becomes like a proper warfare, like fighting through to get to it. Like, it's not going to be quick, right? I don't know.
At the very start of this episode, we would be wise to acknowledge a consistent theme in our geopolitics over the last several decades. Predictions that the Islamic Republic of Iran could fall are very common. Instances where the Islamic Republic has actually collapsed are precisely zero. So, to understand why this time could be different, we've got to give a bit of background, starting with the awful 2025 that set the stage for a crisis in 2026. Over the course of the past year, Iran has been on the receiving end of immense Israeli and American firepower across June's 12-day war, and although Iran's Ayatollahs could claim a measure of victory in the conflict simply because their regime was not obliterated, the war still left Iran's defense apparatus crippled. Iran's air defenses, its missile stockpiles and production lines, and its nuclear program were all severely compromised during the war, each sustaining damage that will take years to fix. Then,
yeah, they are somewhat, let's just say, paralyzed or handicapped because the air defenses were completely massacred by Israel and US forces, right? In the last attack, before US said, fuck it, and just dropped like bunker busters.
Iran was hit by a water crisis that's only gotten worse, as the rainfall that Iran desperately needs just has not arrived. Finally, Iran has been forced to watch as a large share of its international network of proxy organizations has been dismantled. Hamas and Hezbollah in particular have endured severe setbacks over the course of the year. Meanwhile, on the home front, public morale has been dropping as hardliners lose their faith in their regime, and people who oppose the Ayatollahs lose any real reason to fear them. So when Iran was hit with an economic crisis during the final days of 2025, it was in a very weak position to respond, especially when its new financial troubles turned out to be rather severe. The most
Who would have thought that water problem is going to be critical and people are going to be, yeah, I'm not putting up with this shit, and they would protest? Who would have thought of that?
urgent problem was a rapid devaluation of the Iranian rial, a currency that hasn't done well for quite a while, but one that hit incredible lows over the last several weeks. As of now, the rial is trading at 1.4 million to 1 against the US dollar. That's a congratulations, you're a millionaire in Iran. Probably a billionaire. That's a rapid devaluation of roughly 80% compared to just a year ago. Even with the official numbers, inflation in Iran spiked to around 42% annually, and inflation for food prices has been even worse, greater than 70%. As food and other basic goods have become unaffordable, Iran's leaders have decided that it was just the right time to raise prices on the country's subsidized gasoline as well. Great move. So, with the Iranian public already squeezed from so many angles at once, it probably shouldn't have come as much of a shock when people reacted negatively to the news that a rial was now roughly as valuable as a clump of pocket lint. At first, people only took to the streets in relatively small numbers, most of the merchants in the capital city of Tehran. But unlike past instances of public protest in Iran, where the regime's response to dissent is typically both harsh and immediate, Tehran's street sellers didn't face immediate reprisals. The next day, they were back in the streets, and their numbers had grown. The day after that, the crowds grew again. Similar acts of defiance started to pop up in other Iranian cities, and then even in the rural countryside where historically crackdowns tend to be at their most severe. Within a week, the protests have become a nationwide phenomenon, and at the time of writing, they are everywhere. The Conflict Tracking Critical Threats Project noted in a daily update on Monday that from
I don't know. I saw a headline like some militias, or was it like the government military or something? I don't know. Took over multiple cities or seized cities or something.
From the start of protests on December the 28th, Iran has seen over 350 protests across 28 of the country's 31 provinces. Already it's clear that these protests are different than the mass uprisings of 2022 and 2023 following the death of Mahsa Amini in the custody of Iran's morality police. Back then, protests were a divisive issue in Iran. They were about religion, social conservatism, and belief, or lack thereof, in the values of the Iranian regime.
Yeah, that was a different thing, man. That was like women trying to get some rights, basically going anti-Islamic. Islamic Republic, that's what the name of the country is, Iran, right? They were like, okay, we want certain right, this and that. And obviously, like, yeah, it just turned out really badly. But that was a different thing than now. Now it's like Middle Eastern war with Israel, this and that, and now like because of like economical issues, USA is involved as well. I feel like CIA and maybe some other agencies involved somewhat. There is some kind of shit is happening. I just believe that. One day we'll realize like how things were already at play. And yeah, this is Iran is next. Like I feel that. Like this feels right. Because this could happen. Like Trump might do this next. Because it's like in for a penny, in for a pound type of thing. If he did that with Venezuela, I think he's going to go all the way with everything. Let's put military action everywhere. Let's use that awesome, Delta Force and SEAL Team 6, $1 trillion a year budget. Let's use that. I think that's what's going to happen.
Now, though, the cause of the protests is far more unifying. Acute, spiraling economic concerns made worse by corruption and mismanagement with an equal potential to destroy the lives of all people regardless of what they believe. That doesn't just mean that civilians are feeling the pain either. So are soldiers, internal security forces, and local religious leaders that support the regime. All the burning rage from Iran's political opposition is still out there, bottled up after the Mahsa Amini protests failed and tempered by the lessons learned during that very difficult time. And they've had reason to be encouraged, as Iran's regime has started to direct its morality police to let more and more things go, something that all citizens know the Ayatollahs would never allow if they were still as powerful as they used to be. By the first few
Like?
days of January, the protests have begun to devolve into intermittent riots, running clashes with police and vandalism and attacks against state institutions. Worse yet, people were starting to die, with the first 2 fatalities confirmed by state media on the 1st of January after security forces had opened fire in some areas. The regime started to take a heavier hand toward the protests, and although it did its best to make a show of differentiating between peaceful protests and riots, Iran's supreme leader openly instructed security forces that, quote, rioters should be put back in their place, end quote. The nation's judiciary chief called for, quote, no mercy, end quote, against the rioters, and the actions of Iran's security forces have changed to match. As of Tuesday, the 6th of January, the death toll stood at 35 or more, according to international activists, with over 1,200 people detained, at least 1 hospital raided, and regime forces now alleging that, quote, organized cells are working to exploit the unrest. But despite the fact that attempts to appease the protesters have clearly ended, the regime seems to be in a state of panic. Leaked directives from Iran's central bank called for all Iranian banks and financial institutions to prepare for mass shutdowns, infrastructure collapse, and regime-wide chaos, while even despite its financial troubles, the regime attempted to announce a monthly cash payment system for citizens. In a stunning statement issued during a televised speech, Iran's president Masoud Pezeshkian seemed to signal that the crisis may already be out of control, and we'll quote him here, "We should not expect the government to handle all of this alone. The government simply does not have that capacity," end quote. And before we continue, we'd like to take a brief moment to introduce ourselves to the many people who are probably seeing our coverage for the very first time. It's been a wild 2026 so far, and that means more people watch our videos. Hello there. We here at Warfronts are a relatively new addition to the world of conflict analysis, but we believe that we are offering something here on YouTube that can cut through the noise that we've all become used to across global media. At Warfronts, our team makes it our mission to deliver clear, focused explanations of conflicts and geopolitical shifts across the globe with all the context and all the nuance that you should be able to have at your disposal. We don't claim to be experts. We don't claim to be unbiased. Instead, we try to be a conduit for all the very best expert analysis that we can find and present it in a way that actually makes sense and actually matters while staying aware of our own biases, which everyone has, so that they don't compromise our content as best we can. Bias is everywhere. If that sounds like something you'd like to have as part of your media diet, please do consider subscribing. And if you'd like to support the work that we do here, then do check out our premium website, fronts.co. There we dive even deeper on underreported conflicts and invite experts and award-winning journalists to share what they really believe that you need to know. It all costs just $5 a month or $50.
Hey, people, go to original video page link and support this channel. Yeah, this year has been weird. Like, it started like this. I didn't know it would start like this. But like, that was the case with like 2022, 2020 with COVID. What is happening with this decade, man? 2020 started with COVID, and since then, there's always a year with something happening. This year started with US just saying, fuck it, gloves are off. That's how it feels like, at least. I'm gonna watch another video on, something about like Russian tanker that was seized in Venezuela. Check that out. I'm gonna post that later. But yeah, this is a very weird time, man.
Turning up the heat. Now, even with all the unrest and upheaval that Iran is facing, we've got to emphasize that regime collapse is not a foregone conclusion. If nothing else, Iran's leaders have shown themselves to be very resilient in the face of acute crises, and although the problems now are more acute than the Masha Amini protests ever were, there's still a non-zero chance that Tehran can bring this situation back under control. But this time, there's another problem to consider, that Iran's global adversaries have been waiting for a moment like this.
Yeah.
And now, they're turning up the heat. Right now, it's Israel leading the charge, where Benjamin Netanyahu and his government have been signaling for months that a renewed conflict with Iran could be imminent. Recently, Netanyahu traveled to the United States to brief the Trump administration on plans for another round of major strikes, with Trump signaling that he, and thus Israel's most important international backer, was in favor of the idea. According to
Did he call White House and asked what color suit Trump is gonna wear and what color tie? Because why the fuck does it match perfectly? That is some next level ass kissing, isn't it?
Israel, Iran has been working to rebuild and reconstitute groups like Hezbollah abroad, repairing its missile production cycle, and potentially even working to resume its nuclear program. Israel has taken an acute interest in Iran's growing protests, with high-level Israeli officials signaling that their nation will support the protest movement, and recently Israel has placed pressure on Iranian allies abroad. Starting this Monday, Israel renewed its campaign of airstrikes against Hezbollah and Hamas targets across Lebanon after Lebanese officials missed an Israel-imposed deadline to disarm Hezbollah on their own. Open-source intelligence reports, citing Israeli sources, indicate that Netanyahu may have approved a military attack plan that could go into effect as soon as the next 48 hours, and Israel's military appears to have moved into a new state of high alert. The latest news out of the United States may be even worse for Iran, especially...
See, there are times when somebody says something and you're like, yeah, probably not gonna happen. Oh, China's gonna invade Taiwan. Probably not. Those are different times. There are times like, oh, by the way, Israel is like, okay, preparing to attack something. Yeah, they've been doing that for past multiple years, and like, you can probably believe that shit. That will happen. And the same thing applies to US now. US has been like moving a lot. So also this video, like, US might just go in for the kill when it comes to, you know, like Iran and its regime. Yeah, that feels right as well after seeing everything. Domino has to fall. Once it starts, like, yeah, everything's believable.
In the wake of the United States' brazen regime change operation in Venezuela just days ago. After the capture of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, Trump and his inner circle publicly warned world nations that they'd be wise to...
Yeah, man, they did. They literally said Colombia's next, Iran is next. They literally just gave out names like it's like a shopping list. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Like, okay.
Pay attention, and according to Iranian officials speaking to Reuters, there's a real fear in Tehran that they'll become, quote, the next victim of Trump's aggressive foreign policy.
Victim.
End quote. Last week, on the day before the Venezuela operation, Trump took to social media to threaten that if the Iranian regime killed, quote, peaceful protesters, then the United States was, quote, locked and loaded and ready to go.
Damn.
That statement was issued when the reported death toll in Iran was still in the single digits. As of the time of writing, the count of the dead stands at 35, including minors. Publicly, Iran has responded with all of its usual fire and brimstone.
See, again, this is like one of those instances. Like, I think this is more than Venezuela. Like, in Venezuela, you can like ask like, okay, do civilians, do people care if Maduro's there or not? Like, you can at least put a question mark there. But when it comes to Iran and seeing the protest that is happening, if Trump goes after the regime, at least at that point you can be sure, like, yeah, probably Iran people are going to be happy about this if the regime is changed, because of all the protests of the past, all the protests of the current, how badly economy is going, they don't have any fucking water left. You could say like, yeah, they'll probably be like, yeah, this is a good thing or something like that. I don't know. That's what I think. I don't exactly know. Why is camera going crazy? I don't exactly know what is the feeling of Iranian people, but I'm guessing that's the case. I don't know.
In remarks on Tuesday, Supreme Leader Khamenei said that his nation does not believe that Israel will avoid seeking confrontation, and that in response, Iran will not limit its response to a future act of Israeli aggression. In fact, he threatens that Iran could even launch a first strike if it believed that its interests or its sovereignty had come under sufficient threat. On Monday, Iranian state media reported that the nation had received a transfer of Iskander missiles from Russia. The Iskander is a ballistic missile with up to a 700-kilogram warhead and up to a 500-kilometer range. Not enough to reach Israel, but more than enough to strike US assets in Qatar, Bahrain, or Kuwait, force the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, or attack critical oil infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, or other Gulf nations. Privately, though, it appears that Khamenei may have different plans. A recent report in The Times, citing Western intelligence, suggests that he's concocted a plan to flee to Russia if protests begin to really overwhelm Iranian security forces. Look
at his face. He's basically like, fuck that, I'm not Maduro. I'm not getting caught, I'm running away.
According to that report, Khamenei and up to 23 aides and family members will fly straight to Moscow on a plane filled with cash and other assets, in a plan informed by Bashar al-Assad's actions during the collapse of the Syrian regime in 2024. And at this point, I can imagine them playing video games together in Russia. And yes, that means that there is a real chance that the geopolitical upheaval of the early 2020s ends with Khamenei and Assad together on the couch in an apartment. I think Evan wrote this and he's making... It's the same joke that I made. And they're going to play Call of Duty, really amazing. Regardless of Khamenei's...
Yeah. It's all about our religion. It's all about our Quran. Okay, if that's the case, why are you acting like a king and running away with money and your people when things become too hard. It's not about you, it's about your religion. It's about God, isn't it? So you're just using religion and God just to be a dictator and be a king. That is what this means. If you run away like that, at that point your God won't be angry with you. See, this is the fucked up part. People use religion as a tool to rule as a king. That's what's happening.
True intentions, all signs point to imminent military action in the Middle East, and probably with Iran in the crosshairs. Over the last several days, over a dozen American strategic airlifters have crossed the Atlantic, first to Britain, and then further eastward. According to reports from the UK Defence Journal, many of those airlifters are carrying helicopters operated by the Night Stalkers, the elite special operations unit that flew Delta Force commandos into the heart of Caracas just days ago.
Damn.
Speaking of Delta Force, they've reportedly pivoted to the Middle East as well, with other elite American units in Europe, including Army Rangers and Air Assault Forces, being repositioned rapidly as we speak. Flight tracking data has showed US and British refueling tankers and airlifters all headed into the Middle East, while open source analysis has suggested that an unexplained backout across Greek and Cypriot airspace on Monday may have been intended to mask the movement of US assets. American intelligence aircraft have been operating continuously off the Iranian coast, and the commander of US CENTCOM has just made the long journey to Bahrain. According to the outlet Kurdistan 24, Delta Force operators are currently taking positions along Iraq's borders with Syria.
Delta Force is like, this is our time now, boy. Enough of the SEAL Team 6 bullshit. It's about Delta Force now. We are gonna shine. We're gonna have movies made up from us. Enough of this SEAL Team 6 bullshit.
Jordan, possibly with a short-term objective of dealing with the Iran-backed militias in the area that are refusing calls to disarm, although those reports are currently a bit hazy. Finally, we'd be remiss not to mention a series of reports suggesting trouble in Syria, where Israel has reportedly warned the nation's transitional leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, that Iran is planning to kill him. Recent rumors suggest that al-Sharaa himself was likely wounded.
Your ass is burning. Your shorts are ripped. You don't even have ground to stand. You're gonna worry about that shit? America's coming after you, man. Worry about yourself. You're planning to run away to Moscow, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna to get after you, Syria. The Syrian guy is like, look at there. I see Chinooks coming. What are you talking about? Focus there, man.
Wounded in a recent clash at the presidential palace in Damascus, while Israeli military sources have shared anonymously that they're preparing for Iran to launch an attack somewhere across the Middle East, all seeming to indicate that a sudden crisis, either involving al-Sharaa or otherwise, could prompt an immediate military response from Jerusalem. Worst of all for the Iranian regime, the Ayatollahs have no reason to believe that they could deter action from either Israel or the United States right now. Iskander missiles aside, Iran's air defenses were thoroughly devastated in its 12 days.
Iran, always this the case, right? Oh, I have missiles. And that's it. That's all I have, missiles. That's gonna do everything. Like, okay.
War with Israel and the exchanges that preceded it, and the country has basically no means to protect itself from an imminent aerial attack. Its stockpiles of long-range missiles and drones haven't been fully destroyed, but they've been seriously diminished, along with much of their launch infrastructure, while Israel's decision to destroy key facilities in Iran's missile production supply chain means that it can't replenish its stockpiles anytime soon. Its international forces are in no position to help, its ground forces are useless against an Israeli military with no desire to face it on land, and while Tehran could threaten the Strait of Hormuz or the Middle East's oil production, it has nowhere near the firepower it would need to deal with the overwhelming retaliation that would follow. And all of that would already be bad enough, even if Iranian society wasn't in a state of total upheaval. Right now, the walls are closing in on the Ayatollahs from all sides, not passively, not by accident, but because the many forces that would like to see Iran's regime fall have all recognized that this is their moment. The nation's protest movement is taking control. Israel is poised and ready to engage in an all-out conflict, and the United States has made it abundantly clear that it will not be held back by any international limit besides its own ambition. Iran is on the brink of collapse, and its leaders, its citizens, and its enemies all seem to know it. The thing that comes next is destruction, and Iran may not have much time before that process begins. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, Trump could literally just say, if Khamenei says what, we attack. And Khamenei's like, what? Oh, shit. That's the level we are at right now. 2026 is gonna be something, man. It's either going to be chaos it's going to be destruction, or it's going to be one-sided where America says, hold my beer. We'll see, I guess. We'll see where it goes. I feel like the latter one is more probability because I always maintained America's too powerful. I think people know this, but they like to deny it because they don't want to admit that shit, which is weird to me. Like, reality doesn't change if you just close your eyes. It is what it is. So people kind of know that, like, America's too powerful. If someone in America, Trump, just says, fuck it, I'm doing this, there's very little thing most people can do about it. They can go out with all-out war. Not gonna end well, is it? Yeah. Right, well, if you like my reaction, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.